Hey guys, welcome back to Real Estate Steals, Deals, and Opportunities. Today we are going to talk about House of Horrors, and I will be sharing 3 horror stories that we have had in our history of investing. And this is some of the things that can happen when you are investing. You know, and this business is a little risky. So as real estate investors, we are always taking risks. We purchase properties with physical problems, title problems, and even deal with sellers that have problems. And if we're lucky, we make the most money because we deal with a property that has seller problems, title problems, and physical defects. So this is why it's vital to our success to have a team working beside us who specialize in investor type transactions that understand all of the problems and defects that can arise, when you're dealing in these type of properties. They're a deal for a reason. However, even with protective procedures in place, there's no guarantee that every problem can be avoided. We may get stuck with one every now and then. All right, so let's talk about story number 1. We bought an REO property. This happened years ago for only $12,000. That's a steal here in South Florida. You just don't see that, such a deal. And we probably should have done a little more due diligence just because of the price. But these are the things that happened to us. The closing agent charged us for a lien search that they actually didn't perform. And so we saw that we were being charged for this lien search, but we never reviewed the lien search itself. So that was a mistake on our part. If we would have done that, we would have realized that it wasn't performed, and we would have found out the major problem with this deal. We didn't use our own attorney to review the docs, which we normally do. So, a lot of times when you buy a bank-owned property, they choose the closing agent. And this closing agent's not representing you. They're not representing the other party. You have no one representing yourself except for you. And so I always use an attorney to review my docs for me if I'm not closing with that attorney already. And I do that for a reason, because I want that second set of expert eyes to review everything. So had I had done that, I would have also found out this lien search never actually was done. Okay, and we assumed incorrectly, based on the fact that there was a brand new roof on the property, we just assumed, well, hey, if there's a brand new roof, everything must be cool down at the city, right, or the municipality. So the mistakes that we made were clearly our own. And in hindsight, you find that most mistakes are yours, where you either compromised on your normal procedures or you just got too busy to really do the proper work. So we didn't review the documents. We didn't realize there wasn't a lien search. Had we had done that, we would have found a mistake, okay? So we didn't hold the property long enough to gain adequate appreciation. We paid $12,000 for it. And I'm showing you before and after. So before is the house and after is no house. So we went to the property within, 2 or 3 weeks after we purchased it. We were going to put the plan together. We were buying a lot of property back then. And $12,000 just kind of put this property at the bottom of our pile. It was the least expensive thing we probably had ever bought at the time. And when we went back, literally the house was gone. And the reason why is there was a demolition order on the property. Now, the reason we assumed that there was not a demolition order or any other type of problem is because there was a brand new roof on the property. Well, why would the city approve a brand new roof on a home that had a demo order? So we can only assume that the roof was done without a permit. So we made assumptions based on site that were incorrect, and it cost us. We ended up holding this property for a few years before we actually sold it for $19,000. It never quite appreciated enough for us to make any money. So, after taxes and costs and things like that, we didn't make any money. We probably still lost some, but maybe lost less than we would have of trying to resell. If a lot with a house on it is $12,000, imagine how much the lot is worth on its own at that price. So, if you can think that way. But anyway, I call this a horror story because there was a loss. It was definitely a shock that, I'm sure I had a horrified look seeing that there should be a house there and it's not. And then when we did the research, not only did we find out that the lien search was never done, but the city then charged or fined us $7,000 lien for their cost to remove the house. So our only saving grace there was that we did buy a title policy. The title insurance company did pay that lien, because the title company was at fault. They actually charged us for a lien search they did not perform. Again, had we found that, we would have had a lien search to review. Now, here's the other thing that could have happened. Let's say they did the lien search and we just assumed the lien search was okay because no one said anything to us. Again, they're not representing me. They could have had it all in the documentation. And if I didn't notice there wasn't a lien search, I probably wouldn't have noticed there was an exception on the title policy to this issue had they had done the work. You understand? So I still could have been in a mistake and then again be stuck with a $7,000 cost to tear my house down. So I'm happy to announce this has never happened again. Okay, so you should only lose money once, and then that's it, right? If you repeat it, then you really have some problems, okay? So I share these with you because, hey, it's entertaining for you, but by the same token, there are things that I can teach you to avoid so that you don't have these kind of things happen to you, all right? So here's horror story number 2. Now, this house doesn't look like a horror. It's actually an extremely nice home. It's a 5-bedroom home with a pool on the water in a really wonderful city here in South Florida. And we purchased this home at auction. It was a foreclosure auction, right? Like at the courthouse that we already had under short sale contract. So in other words, we were trying to work with the sellers to buy this home on a short sale. And when we couldn't get the short sale work done quickly enough and the auction date was approaching and the lender refused to stop the auction sale, I became emotional. Okay. And I talk about this problem all the time when we actually get emotional and get our feelings involved. So I had put work into this. I really liked this house and I wanted to have it. And so my emotions got the best of me and we won it. We won the property. We probably paid a little more than I would have, because I wanted it. I was invested. I had plans and I wanted this property. So anyway, after a thorough investigation of the title work, after we won it, a lien was revealed that stuck. It didn't wipe out in the foreclosure case. So, we buy a lot of things at auction that have a lot of what we call hairy title. And many of these things wipe out, but there are times when certain liens do not wipe out for various reasons. And we do preliminary title work as well, but it's not as in-depth, as the title work we do afterwards. And what happened is that preliminary title work, we didn't see any of these things that came up after the deeper search was done. So between negotiating that lien and taking care of, getting that off the title, we were now into the property for more than it was worth at the time. So our fix and flip strategy was off the table unless we wanted to take a loss. We knew that this property would rent well. And so we decided, this isn't a great neighborhood. We'll have a good, we should do well renting it. So we're going to go ahead and switch to a plan B of owning this home through the appreciation. And fortunately, our market does appreciate quickly. And we figured it would be a 5-year strategy. I think we're in year 3 or 4 right now. And the home is rented. The home is beautiful. We renovated it nicely. But our flip became a rental in our portfolio simply because of that. So in hindsight, again, when you look back to go, how did I make this mistake? I realized I did get emotional. I wanted to have this. And the title problem, now that title issue, that might happen again. That could be a repeat problem because we bid on so many houses. We can't pay, $200 for everything we're going to bid on to get that in-depth search back quickly. Sometimes you don't know you're bidding on something for a couple of days before it goes to sale. So it's just an unlikely scenario to fit into our business practice because we probably wouldn't make any money if we had to pay. We have to bid on a lot of houses to buy one. So we're talking thousands of dollars in in-depth title work to buy one, and then it probably wouldn't pay for itself. So we are kind of, when you're an investor, you've got to weigh your risks and your rewards. And so we've just made the decision that we're going to continue this strategy. However, every time, something in title evades you, it doesn't evade you again, So it might be something rare, like in this case that happened, but now we know to look for that going further in our preliminary title searches. And so, sometimes it's just the cost of education. But again, this is a time that I can say, if I wouldn't have been emotional about it, I think I would have let the other guys outbid me, and this would not be in my portfolio right now, waiting for, the equity to build up so I can go back to that fix and flip strategy. Okay, so ultimately in the end, we hope to profit on this, but right now we're probably at a break even. So live and learn, right? So I'll leave you with this last horror story. We purchased this home at auction as well. Now, there was an improper lis pendens clouding the title on this property that the attorneys representing the bank that had that lis pendens refused to release. They absolutely refused to release. They refused to communicate. They refused to correspond with our attorney. And it was absolutely improper. So we knew this because of our preliminary title, and we knew this after we ran full title. We won the bid, and we knew that it had to be released. So the problem was we didn't expect the attorneys to be so uncooperative and literally refuse to release this false lis pendens, okay? And so there's more of a title story to that, but the point is this should have been released within 2 weeks of the sale. But because they were uncooperative and just, dropped it, just pushed it off their table, they're not going to deal with it. We were in court, in and out of, it took about 6 months to get to court with legal proceedings so that a judge could rule that it comes off. And we actually won sanctions against these attorneys, which means that they held us up, they cost us money. So we actually got a reward, but it's not a reward that would actually compensate you for the time loss and your cost of money sitting on a property. And because we weren't sure how the judge, this was just odd that they wouldn't sign off, and we weren't sure how the judge was going to react to this, we were kind of hesitant to pour more money into this property because people were telling us we could be, in and out of court for a year if they wanted to, fight us or do something ridiculous. So we were like, what are we going to do? Because this is the picture of the home, and this is what it looked like. We even, inherited this van in the front yard and were able to sell that. But the house, we just didn't want to spend any money on it until it was ours. Now, fortunately, this horror story turns out to be a good one because the market was appreciating at the time. It was a very hot market for a first-time home buyer neighborhood like this in this price range, and it appreciated rather well in that 6 months' time. So by the time we actually cleared title, we put the property on the market exactly like you see it, as is, just like the day we bought it, and we made a very nice profit. So our horror story turned out to be profitable in this case. And would we do it again? Well, you can say yes, because it turned out to be a good story. So, it just depends on our experience, but these are the kind of things that you can run into. And, you've just got to weigh your risk versus the reward. And if you can actually afford the risk, if you're going to run out of money and go broke, if something were to happen to you, then you kind of got to back off and do a less riskier way of purchasing properties. And so you've got a lot to consider. So how can you avoid horror stories in your own business of investing? Most of us incur our mistakes when we make hasty decisions or step over dollars to save pennies. We can usually trace our steps back to our mistake. We are only going to become more successful moving forward if we learn from these mistakes and implement procedures to avoid them in the future. So, whenever this happens to us guys, and we implement procedures if something happens that just didn't go well, whether it costs money or not, it's a recurring issue, or it didn't go well, or there was a lack of communication, or, we continue to skip a process and a procedure that is hurting our timeline or costing us money. If people aren't, suffering from mistakes and they're going along and this is their business practice, the one time that they have a big loss because of that cheap mentality, it could cost them their last 6-7 years of profits. You just never know. And so, our procedure is to better be safe than sorry. We never regret having the extra work done, the extra due diligence, and just being safe, because we are pretty risky. There's pretty much nothing we won't buy. But if we put all our procedures in place, it's what helps us to be more risk adverse. So here are some bullet points of what you can apply to your investment strategies to help you avoid risk, avoid loss. Okay, so create procedures and follow them. Don't compromise on procedures. Just like, in the case where we bought that $12,000 house, our procedure at the time, guys, a lot of municipalities were not online when that happened. Now I can go on, I want to buy a house. One of the first things I do is go online and I look up permit history. I look up a lot of these things. Okay. So online, I could have seen the demo order. But at that time, those things weren't happening. So one of our practices and our procedures was to go to the municipality of every home we bought and ask to see the permit history and the records. We would have found that out. But you know what we thought? It's only $12,000. We're just not going to make the time to do it. And look what it cost us. So we compromised on one of our own procedures because of the stupid thought that the house was only $12,000. Okay, so use your team of experts, use your attorneys and your experts. This is what they were trained to look for and to do and to help you be successful and make money rather than lose it. Realize when you're being hasty, when you're really busy and you start, foregoing or setting aside your procedures, you go, we just won't, I'm just too busy. Just get it to closing. And so you forego further investigation or due diligence because of the rush. That will typically cost you. So recognize when that's happening. Don't be too cheap to skip inspections and important due diligence. I talked about that. And don't make the same mistake twice, okay? And if something happens to you, like for us, once something happens twice, we have it on our radar to go, if this has already happened twice, we are on a path to have it happen again. What's a procedure we're going to begin to put into practice that's going to stop that from happening? Or maybe we're going to change the way that we are doing a certain procedure because we're noticing that something is happening. And the more that things are online and research is available online and we can find those things out, it's easy to sit down. It doesn't even normally take an hour to take my property that I want to buy and go through all of the websites online that I can gather due diligence about that property. And within an hour, I know so much about that property that I see red flags or I don't. And so this is something that I don't even have to do for myself. I can train and pay someone else to do this. But this is the due diligence that initially I can't afford to not do. And, when I started investing, I didn't have the liberty and the pleasure of going online for an hour or less to find all that out. I literally had to drive to every one of these places to find out whatever I could about the property that I was buying. And so I didn't compromise then. And when I did, it would cost me, and I don't want to compromise those things now. So it's usually our mistakes that we make, that cost us money. Even when people say, oh, I was fraudulently taken. You know what? I don't believe that could happen to you. If you applied due diligence, you hired attorneys to look over the paperwork, they spot this stuff because they know what they're looking at. And I'm just thinking of a horror story right now. I recently was called by a couple, and you know why this didn't make it to the story is because we didn't buy it. We did the due diligence. So, I should do a whole lesson on the stuff we didn't buy because of what we found out. But this couple called. They wanted us to buy their townhome. Now, the only reason that I believe that we caught this problem is because I had previously owned about 5 townhomes in this community. Well, then this investor came into this community, and he decided he was going to start buying all the units until he owned 51% share so he could control the HOA. And he literally told me, this is my plan, and once I control 51% of the HOA, I'm going to bump everybody's dues to $1,500 a month, and I'm going to foreclose out everybody who can't afford to pay me. And I was like, okay, this sounds like a criminal. I think I'm going to sell and get out of here. Well, he bought all the units from me, so I gladly sold. And I inform people, hey, you need to sell, things aren't good here. Well, anyway, that was years ago. And so I get a call, I go out and see the unit, we agree on a price, and I ask, is this gentleman still involved in here? And they say, no, they know nothing about it. Nothing about it. And so we're in our due diligence period, but I'm trying to get a hold of the HOA. There's a new property management company involved. So I'm thinking, property management company, this guy's not involved anymore. Well, I find out that he is. He does own over 51%, and he is foreclosing people out, and he is bringing some kind of like $100,000 assessment to all the owners. There's this major lawsuit between all the owners and him. Okay, so now I know that this couple knows everything about it, and they actually lied to me because they're a party to the lawsuit. So when I started going online and looking all this up, I realized that they lied to me. So when I went back to them and said, look, we can't buy your place. You didn't tell us all these things. I specifically asked you. And they said, oh, well, we thought you knew. Well, how did you think I knew if you told me, no, I'm wrong? So we canceled out, obviously, of this contract. But what the reason that these people called us to buy it is because their neighbor called someone I know, another investor, to buy the property. She was selling, and the person she was selling to didn't hire a lawyer, didn't go through a title company. He literally gave the lady cash, about $70,000 cash for deeds to her 2 townhomes. Okay, so this guy has no idea, no title insurance, no due diligence done. He has no idea he's about to get hit with an assessment of $100,000 or more on both of those units. So he can't possibly cash flow, and he can't possibly sell them. And so the woman told this couple, the neighbor said, hey, you ought to call my buyer and sell yours to him because he's, ignorant. And that's what they did. But he said, I don't have any more money, but call these people. They buy houses. They call us, and, that's the rest of the story. But, what a horror story that's going to be for this young guy. He's like in his 20s, and he took all the money he had to buy these 2 units. No attorney, no title company, no realtor, no one to help him do that. So, looking back on that mistake, he's going to go, wow, I didn't have any expert help. I listened to what the seller told me, and here I am. I mean, I have no idea, and of course, can somebody say, well, I can go back and sue her? Where's that going to lead to? It's a losing battle. Anyway, that's your extra horror story for the day. And so anyway, I appreciate you guys tuning in. To reach out to me for deals in South Florida that aren't going to be horror stories, you can reach me at this email, this phone number. I'm with 32 West Realty. We cater to investors here, and we love helping you increase your net worth in real estate. So if you enjoyed what you learned about horrifying investment stories today, then we invite you to learn more about real estate investing and other amazing online topics online via live interactive video conference classes at learnfromgreen.com. It's a wealth of information and knowledge for you there, because when you increase your knowledge, you increase your income. And even listening to like today's tips, entertaining horror stories, but the moral of the story is all of those things we shared can be avoided, and that's what we want you to do, is avoid those pitfalls so you can make more money. So thanks for tuning in today, and we'll see you soon.